Hi, this video is about how to learn SEO for beginners. In this video, I'm going to recommend the most honest SEO teacher I have ever found. There are a ton of fakers out there, and like, for example, in this picture, posers. This is kind of funny. I'm also going to talk about the biggest mental block that keeps people really back from being able to actually understand SEO. All right, and so about me, my name is David Hood, and I've made well over $1 million with SEO, and I'm on a mission to help at least 10,000 people make their first million online. I want to say real quick that one important thing to understand about SEO is that it didn't exist basically like 20 or 30 years ago. So this is a really complicated thing, and that it can be very difficult to kind of understand whether or not you actually understand it. And so that's really the biggest mental block, is that you don't fall for a feeling of understanding. Okay, I can't tell you how many people they think they understand SEO. They go and they spend a day, a week, and a month, whatever, and they're reading articles and they go, I get it. I get what these set of articles are trying to say. I understand SEO. I promise you, you do not. Okay. And you know, you're just reading, just listening, just looking at data. That isn't enough to really understand SEO. And you can't easily get the feel for what really needs to get done. Just kind of like going out and trying to absorb information. But it's very easy to feel like you get it. There's lots of really strange things in SEO, and it's highly conditional. Like in some cases, one thing works, in other cases, something doesn't work. A lot of people think of the algorithm, like say Google's algorithm, like a pie chart. Like it's 17% this and 15% this and blah blah blah. And that is really far from the truth. If you understand, if you think about how like any computer program works, it's more like a bunch of forks in the path, or a huge decision tree. And so, like, you might actually, like, there's certain thresholds where you go here instead of here, all right? And so, like, when you go here, there might be certain checks that are made that aren't even made here, okay? So that's why it's like, okay, it's not always, like, certain things don't matter under some circumstances, and in other circumstances, they matter a lot. Also, there's certain thresholds where if you're below the threshold, nothing happens. If you're above the threshold, then it matters a whole lot. For example, like site speed. Site speed really doesn't matter for your rankings at all. But it does matter because if your site speed is really slow, Google will start to reduce your rankings. And really, I think this has mostly to do with, like, people will bounce off your site really quickly without even giving it a chance. So if Google sends you a visitor and your page takes 15 seconds to load, and they wait 7 seconds and they come back to the search results because you didn't answer the query because your site didn't load, then site speed matters. But under most circumstances, most sites, you can get to a reasonable speed of about 1 to 2 seconds or less, and you're good. It doesn't, and you know, the difference between, you know, if you take your 1.5 second loading site and you do half a second, that's probably not going to affect your rankings at all. It's not going to, like, oh, now instead of being on page 2, you're on page 1. No, that's not how it works. So it's not really a real true factor. Okay, so you meet a certain threshold and then it doesn't matter. There's a lot of stuff like that. And then it's also, there's specific niches where different things are looked at than that wouldn't be looked at in another niche. Okay, so find someone who really knows their stuff. Now, this is not easy, because how do you tell who is an expert when you don't know how to evaluate whether or not they're an expert? This is a legitimate problem, and I fully acknowledge this. And this is something that it took me quite a while to find someone who really knew their stuff. There's a lot of people out there that aren't so much like there's a lot of fakers, but maybe there's sort of like kind of like a halfway point where they know some things and they're fronting like they know a lot more than they do, and maybe they actually think they know a lot. Maybe they've done what a lot of people do, and they've read a bunch of articles and they're kind of regurgitating what the experts are saying out there, and so they think, I know SEO. There's a lot of this going on the internet. There's a lot of writers who are hired writers who read a bunch of stuff out about SEO and then compile it and regurgitate it, or however you want to put it, but haven't actually done a website from beginning to end, from starting it to ranking it all by themselves. And so they don't really understand all the pieces of the puzzle. Okay, not that they can't have some parts that are right. There's a lot of kind of like half-truths where technically something matters, but in reality, it's like, again, it's not like a huge factor most of the time. And so, you know, just because someone's dressed up really nicely doesn't mean, or you know, is cute, it doesn't necessarily mean that they know what they're talking about, obviously. So how do you differentiate for these people. First of all, you try to look for real results. So for example, my site, the site, one of my public sites, Dallas SEO Geek, I actually rank on the first page, high on the first page for stuff like Dallas SEO, which is a highly competitive search phrase, and I've been high on the first page for years. Okay, so this is a real valid result. Okay, that you can check independently of this. You can go to Google right now and you can type in Dallas SEO and look for Dallas SEO Geek, and I should, generally I should be there. I've been there for a while. Maybe at some point I won't be, but it's a real result, and this is something you should try to look for. Now, obviously, sometimes people can't, for legitimate reasons, can't reveal certain specific information. So you can't go, hey, okay, show me all the things you rank for. Well, no, I mean, you can't. So there's other ways that you have to look for it. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to tell you the person that I find to be, and how to find this person to be the least faker ever. And I wouldn't say that like the way that he does SEO is necessarily for everyone, or that like he understands every aspect of SEO out there, but he's excellent at SEO, specifically the way that he understands SEO. And no SEO person that I know really, like all the best people in the world, they all do things that the handful that I know personally, all do things a little bit differently. They all have kind of their own unique tricks and their own unique understandings, and they do learn from each other, but they might have disagreements, and that's okay. There's different approaches. There's different ways to skin a cat, and again, it depends on the context. Maybe one person's techniques work really well in the context that they're in this kind of area, and then another person, they're more over here, so the way they do it works really well. Again, also, there's a lot of different approaches to this, and there's a lot of different traffic. You can have two people in the same market doing two different approaches and getting two completely different traffic sets, or largely separate traffic sets, and both be right. Really, just try to understand the underlying principles, but you're not going to be able to do that just reading and looking. Okay, and I'm going to go into that in a second. So the least faker ever is his name is Greg Morrison. All right, he's one of my most favorite people of all time, and you can find him at omgmachines.com. It's a very expensive relative to like the $7 ebooks, but at the same time, it's not expensive relative to like, let's say like the the $100,000+ that I paid for my degree, and I think it's way more valuable than the degree, and so like it's inexpensive from that standpoint. So I don't want to like make it seem like it's well worth it by far to have someone who legitimately is honest and straightforward, not just about like what they do know, but what they don't know. A lot of people out there, they maybe know, they maybe know this stuff, but then they come out and they try to talk about this stuff like they know about it. Okay, he's very good at just like, I don't know about this. You ask a question about this, I don't know. What about this? I know this exactly. This is my direct experience related to it, and that's pretty rare to find. Okay, so that's one place I would start. Just get on the list and talk to them, and there's other people out there that are good. So I'm not saying this is like the only person, but if you're asking for like me, like who would I say is like the least faker ever? It's him and the kind of the group of coaching and training that you get with this. Okay, so here is probably the biggest thing, and I've alluded to it several times before, but is test yourself. You cannot learn how to shoot a basketball while just reading a book about how to shoot basketball. Okay, you actually have to go out and take the shots. You have to not just take a few shots. You have to take a lot of shots. Okay, and this is true for SEO. There's so many different scenarios and so many different contexts with which a website can rank or not rank, that in order to really understand, let's say someone comes to you and they say, why am I not ranking, or what can I do to rank? And if all you've done is read a bunch of stuff, you're just going to give them kind of general advice that maybe other people know to do. Okay, and so this isn't going to be very helpful most of the time. And so what's really helpful is having similar scenarios, because there's just basically unlimited possibilities here in terms of the different types of scenarios. And when you encounter, sometimes there's two scenarios that are very similar, and you're like, oh, I had this scenario and I did this and it worked, or I did this and it cratered me, and so okay, don't do that, or do that, something like that. This is going to be really critical also to just truly being able to understand SEO. You have to have direct experience. There's just no way to understand basketball, for example, just reading about it. Okay, you actually have to actually practice it and participate in it. Okay, in order to really be able to understand it. And the same is true. It's more true for SEO. SEO is very complicated. Again, Google is looking at the internet as a whole. They're looking at everything, and they're putting all the pieces together. And if you're trying to understand it with just like, you know, reading and theory and stuff, then you're just never going to get it. You can spend years doing that. And if you never start your own website and try to rank it from start to finish, you're not gonna get it. There's many different types of scenarios. You've got local versus national. Let's do more like versus. And you've got Google ranking in Google Maps. All right, you've got different niches that have different kinds of scenarios. Like Google treats the medical niche kind of differently. Okay, and some searches are kind of a mix. Actually, I didn't mention this. Some searches are kind of a mix of local. They're kind of what I would say is more like a level of localization. So when you search plumber, okay, Google's going to serve up to you highly localized results. It's going to know where you're sitting, and it's going to serve up localized results. There's some searches that are kind of a mix. Like they'll show some localized results and some sort of like kind of informational national results. And understanding the differences between that is huge. And I guess this is kind of a subset of that. Different niche. I would talk about that. Let's see. Low competition / what's called long tail. Okay. This is a critical part of understanding is, you know, some people think, well, how do I rank #1 for this keyword? Well, that's not really the right question. The right question is, how do I attract traffic that is my target market? Which is not the same thing, because there's high competition keywords that, yes, you want to rank for, but it's actually, when you take like the top 5 keywords for like a specific market, it's always a very small percentage of the total traffic. And so being able to target like a wider range of traffic should be a part of your strategy. But there's different contexts to each one, and some markets have not a whole lot of like low competition, long tail, specific search phrases opportunity, and some of them have tons of it. Okay, so as long as you go about this in sort of like a scientific way, which is why I have this, it's sort of like, so you have 2 different sites, maybe start like, you know, several different sites, or have planned over the next, like, let's say you're starting today. You're saying, today I'm going to learn SEO. Okay, so you go, you sign up with Greg Morrison or someone else, whoever, even, you know, somebody, it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, but from a testing standpoint, it doesn't matter. You take what they do and you try it, okay? And you try it not just on one site, you try it on 3 sites, maybe the first month, plan over the first 3 months to try it on like maybe 10 total sites. And so you have 10 total sites running. And what's a good idea is to have a few sites that are very closely related. Maybe they're targeting the same like Plumber Dallas. Okay, so they're both targeting Plumber Dallas, and you do different things with them. And so you can kind of isolate, like with this one, I'm going to do this technique, and with this one, I'm going to do this technique, and what happens. Now, that just 2 sites is not going to be enough, because there's other things that information that you're not going to be able to see. Google there's a lot of information that's public and that you could find if you know how to look for it. There's a lot of information that won't be public, and there's some things that you just can't completely isolate. So, you know, it doesn't have to be 2 plumber sites in Dallas. It could be a plumber site in Dallas and a plumber site somewhere else. It could be a plumber site in Dallas and a roofing site in Dallas, or whatever. There's all sorts of different ways you can go about this, but really try to be scientific about, okay, in this one I'm going to test this method, and in this one I'm going to test this method. Okay, what works better? What seemed to give me the best improvement in my organic rankings and my organic traffic? Also, another important thing to be scientific is like metrics for success. Okay, there's all sorts of different data out there, but I think you can narrow it down to two that really matter: organic rankings and organic traffic. As I said, okay, these are the metrics that I use to define how successful a project is. Okay, ultimately, what you're looking for is organic traffic. So the organic rankings are a more accurate and earlier indicator, but ultimately what you're looking for is organic traffic. That is your target market. All right, but so you still want to track your rankings. You don't want to track like 5 or 10. Usually you want to track like 50 to 200 for each project, because you want to kind of look at it holistically. If you track only 5 or 10, your data is not going to be completely accurate. So you know, that's a big tip for you testing it. Okay, well, I think I've gone into a lot of stuff here. Please like this video if you thought it was useful. If you have any questions, please feel free to make a comment below. I will respond. And please subscribe to the channel if you found this video to be helpful and you'd like to see more videos. Thanks for watching, and have a great day. Bye.